A few years back, I was completely out of ideas for what to get my friends and family for holiday gifts, and as you guys know, I love cooking, so I thought, why not do some homemade gifts? Now, homemade is super easy, it can often be quite inexpensive, and it actually just feels really special to receive something homemade. I use these now all the time. I use them for holiday gifts, but even also things like housewarming or hostess gifts. So today I'm going to show you some super easy recipes that you can turn into gifts, and of course we're going to meal prep it because actually all of these options make really good ideas for stocking your own pantry, fridge, and freezer as well. So with that, let's get started. I absolutely love this granola recipe because it is oil-free and so easy to make. And today we're making it with a twist. We are changing up the spices to make a gingerbread version.
Into a mixing bowl, we'll add rolled oats, chopped walnuts or pecans, ground flax, ground ginger, cinnamon, pumpkin pie spice, and a pinch of salt. And after giving that a thorough mix, we'll just add our wet ingredients, which are maple syrup and vanilla extract. Add all of that to a parchment or Silpat lined baking sheet and bake at 350 for 20 minutes. Once out of the oven, go ahead and let it cool for another 20 minutes, and then you can break it into clusters and add it into your jars.
I wanted to find a cracker that was relatively healthy and also oil-free, so I came across this recipe from Minimalist Baker that uses a lot of nuts and seeds, which all have a lot of health benefits, as well as brown rice flour.
For these crackers, we'll need ground flax, brown rice flour, salt, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, and chia seeds. Give that a thorough mix, and then add your boiling water and mix one more time. Let that rest for about 15 minutes. And then your mixture should look nice and goopy like this. So we're just gonna spread that out onto a parchment lined baking sheet and add a little bit of everything but the bagel seasoning on one and nutritional yeast on the other. To check if these are done, make sure they are not soft in the middle anymore, and once they are fully cooled, you can just use your hands to break them into cracker pieces.
There's just something about the holidays that screams caramel corn. Like, I don't know if any of you ever used to get those tins of popcorn at the store with like 3 different flavors. There was like a cheese, an original, and a caramel corn. So I wanted to make a healthier version of that today, and I was recommended this recipe to try by one of you, my lovely subscribers. This recipe is actually from Drina Burton, and oh my gosh, this recipe is so delicious. If you only make one recipe from this video, you have to make this one.
For the wet ingredients of this recipe, we'll need maple syrup, almond butter, vanilla powder, and salt. Give it a good mix until it looks like this. We will also need popcorn kernels. I'm just popping these in my air popper, but you could also use the microwave. To the popped kernels, I'm just adding some peanuts, which was another recommendation by the person who suggested this recipe, and coat the popcorn very well. I actually needed a bit extra sauce, so I'll leave those adjustments in the description box down below. And once it finishes baking, we actually just want to leave it in the oven for another 7 minutes with the oven turned off, and that will turn your caramel corn nice and golden and crunchy.
I feel like jam is another one of those quintessential holiday recipes that people really love to both gift and receive. I remember a few years ago, a friend of ours gave us this spiced cranberry jam and I was obsessed. Plus, it's really easy to make at home, a lot easier than you think. We are actually going to make both an apple butter and a cranberry jam. The apple butter we're doing in the Instant Pot, which makes it super easy and hands-off, and the cranberry jam only takes about 10 minutes on the stovetop.
I'm using frozen cranberries, but you can also use fresh with some water or orange juice, your spices of choice. I'm using star anise, cinnamon, and orange zest. For sweetener, I'm using maple syrup, but you could also use coconut sugar or date sugar. Let that simmer for about 10 minutes, and don't forget to remove your spices, and then once cooled, add it to your jars. First, of course, we'll need some apples. I'm just using a variety of what I already had on hand, and I did remove the skins of mine since they are not organic apples, but you could leave the skin on if you wanted. So just add all of those ingredients into your Instant Pot with some coconut sugar, pumpkin pie spice, a pinch of salt, and vanilla extract. Go ahead and seal that and set it to high pressure for 10 minutes. And you will see your apples are nice and soft and ready to be blended. Now I wanted to reduce mine down a bit more, so I just put the Instant Pot on saute mode. Go ahead and press the saute button until the menu reaches less. And I noticed mine was still splattering a bit, so I used a piece of parchment paper to cover it with just a small hole for the steam to escape. And after about 15 minutes of reducing, you can see it is nice and thickened and just a perfect apple butter consistency.
And a little something to go with your jam, why not a rustic homemade country loaf? Now, I know what you're thinking, bread is intimidating, but let me tell you, it is actually so easy, especially a simple yeast bread like this. You don't need a stand mixer or any fancy equipment, and just look at how elegant it is. Of course, if I'm making this for myself, I still like to make a couple loaves and then just slice them all and pop them into the freezer, take a slice out as needed and toast it, and that way I have bread ready to go at any time.
I'm going to be making 2 loaves in this one bowl, so we're just first adding all of our flour and water, and give it a mix as best you can. It doesn't need to be really well combined, just a shaggy dough is fine, and then we'll cover that for about 20 minutes. Once that has rested, we will add our yeast and salt, and you're gonna take a wet hand and just mix that in. You really wanna pinch it and work it through the dough until you feel that it's pretty well combined throughout, and then again, we're gonna cover it for another 20 minutes. At this time, we're gonna do our first set of stretch and folds, which is basically just to pull the dough up. You don't wanna pull it so high that you tear it, just a gentle pull 4 times all the way around the dough ball, and then set it back to rest for another 20 minutes. We'll repeat the stretch and fold one more time after that, and then let the dough rise for a few hours, and you should get a nice, bubbly, fluffy looking dough ball. So we're just gonna spread a bit of flour onto our work surface, and since I made a double loaf here, I'm just gently cutting the dough into 2 balls, and you're just gonna give it a rough shape to start, and then let that rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, believe me, I am not an expert, but what I've learned from watching YouTube videos is that we want to make this into as tight of a ball as possible. So that's what I'm doing here. Just go ahead and fold it a few times, and then use your hands to work it into a circle. For this loaf, I'm adding some sesame seeds on top, so just take a wet hand to gently dampen the surface, add it into your sesame seeds, and then into a basket to rise for 1 more hour. I'm just sprinkling a little bit of flour on top so that our silicone cover doesn't stick, and we will let those rise. When it's time to bake them, go ahead and just flip your loaf out onto a piece of parchment paper, and you can use a Dutch oven or even just bake these on a baking sheet. It does help to score the top. You can use a knife or kitchen scissors for this. Halfway through the baking time, if you're using a Dutch oven, go ahead and remove the lid and pop it back into the oven until it's nice and golden. And then once these are fully cooled, I waited until the next morning. You can go ahead and wrap these in a decorative tea towel if you're giving these as gifts. And this is really easy, just make 2 knots on the top. For the second knot, go ahead and tuck in those extra little edges, and you have a cute little gift package.
I love a beautiful chocolate bark. There is something about it that is just so elegant and of course completely customizable to your taste preferences. I'm going to show you 3 options, but of course the flavor combinations are endless. Feel free to use any kind of mix-ins or extracts that you like.
For this bark, we will need vegan chocolate. I'm just using these Costco chocolate chips, which are vegan, but you could also use any other dark chocolate that you like. And go ahead and add that to the microwave. We're gonna microwave this in 20-second intervals, just stirring after every round. So just continue the process of heating it in 20-second intervals until it is nice and melted. And once it's ready, just go ahead and pour it out onto the parchment. Now you do need to work quickly here because it will start to set, but just use your spatula to work it into a rectangle-ish shape, and then add your toppings. For this first one, I'm using dried apricot pieces with some sunflower seeds, hemp seeds, and pumpkin seeds. You may need to press down on them just a bit to make sure they stick into the chocolate, and then we'll pop that whole tray into the fridge. For the next batch, I'm keeping it super simple with just peanuts and some flaky sea salt. And for the last batch, we're going to make it a mint chocolate version. A little peppermint extract goes a long way. We only need a few drops here. And then you can top this with vegan Christmas sprinkles or crushed candy canes. And as each bark is chilling, go ahead and add the already chilled ones on top of each other. These actually stack really well once they're chilled, just in case you need to save some space in your fridge. When you're ready to cut them, you can use a knife or your hands. I do kind of prefer to use a knife. I just found that it worked a little bit better to get the shapes of pieces that I wanted. And as you're placing them in the jar, try your best to put the topping side facing out. Just gives a little bit nicer of a presentation.
Now, if you love the idea of having snacks on hand, you've got to check out this video right here because I have 20 snack ideas and a free printable guide there as well. I think you'll really like it. So go check out that one next. And with that, let's eat plants, and I'll see you guys next time.